Hey, welcome. This is Bridges Live, and I'm Dr. Paul Dyer, and I got another special guest with me, and it's Miss Geraldine McCall. Geraldine, boy, that sounds like an old name. Geraldine, welcome to Bridges Live.
Thank you very much.
So, you know, when I hear the name Geraldine, and I almost have to giggle because that's like that whole Sanford and Son name, right? That Geraldine is no, it was Flip Wilson. That's what it was.
Yes, Flip Wilson. Yes, Flip and Killer.
So now, obviously, this is radio. Most people are going to talk, but let me thank people for Bridges Live and all my sponsors that listen to every Monday. You can always contact me on drpaulholisticscience.com. And I'd like to thank all my sponsors and listeners who listen to me throughout the week. And I have my different podcasts. It's called Weekly Wednesday with Dr. Paul and then Dr. Paul Weekly. But today, I'm talking to Miss Geraldine McCall. Geraldine, give us a little bit of bio about yourself because you're an author, but you're more than that. So give us a little bit of a background of you, and then we'll go from there.
Well, at an early age, I decided I wanted to be a writer. I was 6 years old when I announced to my family that I was going to be a writer when I grew up. No one said a word. That was the loudest no a 6-year-old child could ever hear. It discouraged me, and I forgot about it. But as an adult, I began working at a local radio station as the continuity director. That means I wrote commercials to be aired. And one year I wrote a commercial for a jewelry company. It was for a Dolphin night light. That's when the Dolphins won the Super Bowl and all that stuff. Well, they sold out of the lights because of my commercial, and they sent me a nice, expensive gift. And that gave me the initiative to try my hand at writing again. And at the time, I couldn't write a paragraph that made sense. But I started working at it. I went to the library. I checked out some books on how to write. And out of one of those books, it told me all I needed at that time. Now, this was during the time when a typewriter was what you used. You wrote on a long legal pad, and then you transposed it to the typewriter, where you made all kind of errors and had to correct it. But when you follow your dream, none of the problems bother you as much.
Now,
because you're doing what you want to do.
Now, before you get there, there's a couple of things I want to clear up. First of all, when the Dolphins won the Super Bowl, Jesus was just born, I think, right? That's how long ago.
I go a long ways back, baby.
And then the second thing, you know, people listen to the podcast. This is about social media. I don't even think people even know what a typewriter is.
Well, they remember way back when their parents were young.
So you gave, I think, without letting people know, you just told people you're an older person. You're an elder.
I have no problem with telling my age, honey. God has been good to me.
God bless. So.
Oh, yes, I have no problem with that.
So let people know how old you are then.
I am 76 years of age.
Oh, look at you. You go. So now you had said something, a couple of things that just really struck me so passionately. It's about the loudest no. When you didn't get any response from family, it was the loudest. No. It was the loudest no you ever heard. You want to?
That's right, because they looked at each other and then went back to what they were doing.
There's a lot.
It was like I had never said a word.
There's a lot of parents who give silent no's, don't you think? Or people, or our human connection. We give a lot of silent no's that we're not giving, or that we're giving.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And sometimes we don't realize that the child is taking it as a no.
Right.
But back in the day when I was young, a lot of people I talked to said, black people don't read.
Wow.
And that was totally untrue because my household was always full of newspapers, books, everything. We always read in our house. So I couldn't understand that.
So where do you think, I mean, obviously this is your opinion, but where do you think that type of mentality or that phrase came from? Why do you think that was?
It's still in play from slavery days when we were told not to learn to read or write. Some people still have blinders on, and they need to become aware of the fact that they can read, they can write. But on top of that, a lot of us do read and write. We just don't let the other man know.
Wow. And is that a fear thing? Because, I talk with emotional sciences. I'm always talking about what fear does to the body, how it creates a sickness, how it creates physical pain, how it creates what you call mental pain. Is that the pain people keep holding on to? Is that fear?
It could be that fear, or it could be it's none of your business. Because through the years, we've learned that we have to keep some things to ourselves, or someone else may use it to best us, as the kids would say. It's like crabs in a barrel.
That's another Southern phrase. You're from the South, right?
Born and raised in Pompano Beach, Florida. Now reside in Fort Lauderdale. I'm still South.
You're still South. So now let's get to, when you started writing, what did you find? Because now it's about passion. A lot of people don't find their passion or their purpose. They are still hearing the no. How can we help people? How can you help people find their purpose and their passion like you did?
Well, one thing I would tell them is to be honest with themselves. Go deep within themselves and ask themselves, what is it I enjoy doing above everything else? No matter how weird it may seem, no matter what anyone else may think of it. If it's something that you enjoy doing and you can stay up all night and do it and still go to work the next day and don't feel tired, then that is your passion. Now, follow it no matter what someone else may say.
Now, I know we had a conversation once, and you said that one time you started writing, and you could not get it out of your head. You went to the bathroom. Now, tell that story where you...
Okay, part of my story was coming to me, and I've learned through the years that when it wants to come, I need to stop whatever I'm doing and write it down. Well, at this particular time, the story wanted to come, and I started writing on it. I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. I got tired. I said, my eyes need a break, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I took a break, and I went back to writing. Well, time to go to bed that night, I put everything away, and I got in my bed, and I'm trying to go to sleep. I couldn't go to sleep. The story had not finished. I had to get up and write more. I wrote again. I wrote till about 11 o'clock that night. Then I went back to bed. As soon as my head hit the pillow and I closed my eyes, I saw something like a black and white spiral just going around and around and around. That was the story still trying to come out. I got up and went back in the bathroom. When I finished writing, it was almost time for me to go to work. So I just showered and dressed and went to work. And I was not tired. I wasn't sleepy. I was still energized. When you're doing what you love to do, and it means a lot to you, it doesn't take away. The story would not stop until I had written it out. And normally, when a story comes to you, or part of a story, if you write it down the first time, it's usually clear and concise. But if you say, well, I'm busy, I'll get back to it later, when you get back to it, it might be a little muddy, but it's still not too bad. But if you keep pushing it away, by the time you get around to writing it, it's going to need a lot of editing. So I found that when a story or any part of a story comes to me, I need to stop what I'm doing and jot it down. It doesn't take long. And when I come back to it, and when I write real fast, no one can read what I wrote except me, because my V becomes TH, my ARE becomes AR, and that's just the way it is. When it comes to you, I just write a U. When the word TWO, I put a 2. That way, when I'm writing it out, I know what it is. A stranger would look at this and say, this person must have been made crazy or drunk. But that's how I write, to get it out, because the thoughts come so fast sometimes. I have to learn to use my own shorthand.
Now, when you started writing, and this is kind of like some of the things I had talking about this on Bridges Live before, and again, thank you for listening to Bridges Live. We were talking with Geraldine McCall. She's an author, writer. It's about listening to, is it similar to listening to God talk to you? and allowing him to bring that gift out of you, and that's what you are? Is it part of that process?
It could be similar. A lot depends on your personal relationship with God.
Okay.
See, everyone doesn't have a personal relationship with him. I do. And when he comes to me and tell me whatever, usually I've prayed and I've asked. See, when you pray and ask for something, you go on with your life as if he's answered it the way you wanted him to answer it. Mm. And sometimes his answer is yes, sometimes wait, and sometimes no. It depends on where you are in your life at that time. You may ask him for something, and he may say, wait. That's because you're not ready for it yet. Or he may say no. But because he says no now, as you live your life and further down, what if you want it is there in front of your face, and you say, where this came from? Then you think about it. You will see that you couldn't get this particular thing until you had done other things. You have to follow a process. But you have to be true to yourself and true to God. God answers my prayers a lot of times just before I wake up in the morning. Mm. I'll wake up, and it's like I'm in REM sleep or something. It's clear and concise in my mind, the answer to what I asked. Sometimes I don't like to answer, but I follow through anyway. Sometimes I do. But you have to follow God's lead according to your relationship with him. Because now you have to realize, too, Satan can mimic whomever he wants to.
Wow.
So sometimes when you think you're following God and you happen to be following that other one, when you realize that this is not something God would have his child do, never be too proud to say, I followed the wrong one. Heavenly Father, please guide me out of this mess. Show me how to get out of it. And I guarantee you, he'll take you out of it. But you have to recognize the fact that you're following the wrong one.
And that goes back to that listening. And then so when people are finding their passion, like when I find my passion and my purpose, my body feels and reacts totally different than something that isn't right. Is it that way for you also?
Yes, yes, yes. You know when something is right, and you know when it's not as it should be. Sometimes it's right, but it's not complete yet.
Okay.
So you have to take a deep breath and lay back and let it come at its own pace. You can't rush some things.
Now, you've raised kids, you've been married, you've been writing, and all this is part of your passion and purpose combined, or is it separate in different categories?
It's all combined. It's how you choose to live your life.
Right.
See, when you write, your writing takes you away from everything. It's like you're married to this computer and nothing else comes into it. When I was writing on one of my books, my children knew if my blinds were open, they could see I had my computer in my dining room. They could look through the verticals of my picture window and see me at my computer. If they knocked on that door and I looked up and I went back to typing, they knew to get in their car and leave because Mama was working and I wasn't moving. And that's the way it was. It would just overtake me. But then, too, when I took a break, and whatever, I would call them and say, if your kids want to, you can come back over. Their feelings weren't hurt because I had explained to them how I work. When I have a thought going, I have to stick with that thought. I can't just put it aside. But sometimes, in reality, when you are a mother or a wife, you have to push it aside no matter what.
But that's
because
not
family.
But you
family has to come in there too.
You pushing it aside is not pushing your passion away. There's a
no, it's not.
I think
it's just a side.
Yeah, it's just a side. So I think a lot of distinction comes with people who push their passions away and not to the side. And if they do push it away, they have regrets.
You know, some people don't have a choice when it comes to living your life.
Okay.
Life throws all kind of kinks in front of you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You can sometimes kick it to the curb, and it will stay in the back of your mind, but life won't permit you to go back to it, sometimes for years. But when you go back to it, believe it or not, everything you had in your mind at the time you were writing it the first time, it's still there. And it will come when you need it. Because it's a gift. It is a gift. It is there. Like my last book I wrote, I started writing that book in 1994. Life happens. I had this and that. My mother had Alzheimer's. I took care of her. All kind of things happened and whatnot. And then I retired in 2005 to write the 6 books I had in different stages of completion. This book I didn't touch. I wrote 3 other books. In 2015, I finally pulled it out and I finished it. And then I let it sit on my printer for 2 years. Now, I didn't decide to get it published until 2017. And by the time we went through all of that, its first printing was just January 2019, January this year.
So let's get to how many books there are out there and where they can get them, and what's the titles of the books?
My first book that was published is titled Conflict of Emotions. That one was out of print, but I'm in the process of reissuing it. So that should be out within the next 3 weeks. That one. That one is about America teaching its girls to believe in happily ever after. And Janice, the protagonist in here, is married to Chris for about 12, 13 years before she really realizes that there's no such thing as happily ever after. And she goes through a conflict of what to do when she has to deal with him. That's the first one. The second one is titled Winston Dressler. Now, Winston is the protagonist in here, and as you can tell, I am not a man. and he's from Jamaica, born just outside of Kingston, Jamaica. I have no Jamaicans in my family except the ones who some of my relatives have married Jamaicans. But this guy, he was born, and he decided at birth that he was going to be wealthy this lifetime no matter what. In his most previous life, he froze to death because he was homeless. In this lifetime, he looks at his parents and decides that, yes, these parents will allow me to do what I want to do. If he thought they weren't the kind of parents he wanted, he would have held his breath and went back to the other side. But since these parents would allow him to do what he wanted, he did what he needed to do to live. And he did become wealthy. And not in the way that you would think he did. But I would say this. He murdered his best friend's father when he was in the 4th grade.
Ooh,
but he never goes to jail for it. He pays for it in another way. Okay, that's Winston. The next one I did was Unequally Yoked. This one is about Valerie Chase. She's always had the upper echelon of churches on a pedestal. Ministers, preachers, deacons, deaconesses, all those kind of people. She didn't realize that they had feet of clay, just like everybody else. And she goes through a traumatic experience because she marries a deacon, and he turns out not to be one of God's children. Okay? The next one I wrote is A Journey Through Dementia/Alzheimer's Disease. This is a story of my mother's journey with Alzheimer's. This was a tough one to do. But to keep my sanity, I journaled while I was helping with her. And that helped me deal with it. Although many days I drove home on 95 boo-hoo crying. But I managed to get through it. That's that one. And the last one is Murder at Uncle Candyman's Grocery. This is one where a 15-year-old girl is accused of murdering a man in Uncle Candyman's grocery store. A guy sees her. He sees the murder take place. He looks directly at the person who did it, and he tells the police who she is. Well, when they first catch her, she don't know what it's all about. She says, I didn't kill anybody. But after a while, she says, yes, I did it. And the grandmother doesn't believe it, the dad doesn't believe it, but the mother believes it, and the police believes it. So the grandmother, being this Christian lady, says, I know damn well my granddaughter didn't kill anybody, and I'm going to find out what happened. Well, she hires this girl who was one of her son's best friends. It was 3 people, Valerie and John. They end up getting married. And then there's Linda. Linda turns out to be a police department, so she quits and becomes a detective. So the grandmother hires the detective to find out what really happened. And all these years have gone by, they lost contact with each other. So now this is a way that would bring the friends back together and solve the murder.
So one of the things that...
Those are my books.
Now, one of the things we know as writers, because people know I write, is that we get lost in our writings, and we put a lot of who we are in our books, in our writings.
Yes, we do.
So,
yes, we do.
I'm not going to ask you which one, because they're all touch different parts of you in different situations in different ways.
They sure are.
But I want to get back. I want to get to what you said about your mom and how your journaling helped you get through that tough time of your mom. Because my mom died of dementia also. And she had a stroke, and well, she died. She didn't die because of dementia and Alzheimer's, but she died, and that was the time frame. And I also wrote stories in that grief letter to my mom about how she was for me. What is it about that time period in those writings that you wrote in that book that this is going to help the next person who is going to go through that, who is going through that, and they would find comfort in that book? What will you think that would help them? How would that help them?
Well, one thing in there, when, sometimes your parent will jump hot on a dime for no reason whatsoever. You don't see it coming. My mom did that to me one day, and I was so hurt. I knew if I didn't get out of there, I would have said something I shouldn't have said. And this is my mom. So I said, look, I've got to go. I'll see you tomorrow. I got in my car, boo-hoo crying. And I called my sister who lived in Live Oak because her husband had died from it too. I called my sister and I told her what happened, and she says, let me tell you how you handle this. She says, no matter what she says, agree with it or just say nothing and leave it alone. She says within 15 to 20 minutes, she won't even remember it. And that was so... Take a deep breath and take whatever they're saying and keep it moving, because 15 minutes later, they won't remember. I took my sister to the doctor today to get some glasses, and she acted up, but I remember to take a deep breath, and I stuck my head in my book I had. She don't even remember what she did or what she said. But we as caregivers have to have deep pockets of holding pain.
Yes. Yes.
It helps to journal. It helped me to journal. I'm journaling my sister. Right now, I've stopped now for the last 6 months or so. I haven't been journaling. But this was a tough road to hoe. My sister has it too. And her husband died from it. That's how she knew to tell me what to do when I called her about our mom. And our mom told us she was going to die that day. She died Christmas Day, 2008. And she told us she was going.
Now,
she was just waiting on my sister to come home from Live Oak. When my sister came home for Christmas, that was it. That's all she wanted. That was her firstborn.
Now, one of the things that, and I want to remind people you listen to Bridges Live, and I'm Dr. Paul. We're talking to Miss Geraldine McCall. She's an author and a writer, and she's 76 years old, and she has lived her life, and she's been writing books, and to me, it's about finding your passion and your purpose, and she's found her passion and purpose. And we as people, all people, of all ages, and all types of people, you said it so succinctly, Geraldine, that we have a gift. And that gift is for us to shine that gift upon this world. And I like to say thank you for writing and giving your gift to this world.
You are very welcome.
So it
releases something in me when I do what I know I'm supposed to do. A deep feel of completeness. You have to have, but then too, you have to be able to ignore the naysayers.
Right.
So I've had friends, when I wrote my first book, I told a lot of my friends I was writing a book, and they said, oh, that's nice. Okay, when the book was finally published, I invited them to my book signing party, and I can't make it this time, but when I see you, I'm going to get 2 copies, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that first book was released in 1987. They were still waiting on them to get 1 copy, let alone 2. But those are the things you have to take a deep breath and keep it moving. Don't take it personally.
What's the website that people can get to so they can catch your books, contact you?
Okay, my books are on Amazon.com. Okay, but my personal email is let me see, I got a Facebook page. It's Author Geraldine McCall.
Okay. Author Geraldine McCall. And have you ever thought about holding an elders writing class for women or people who just want to start writing at any age? Because I think people get to a certain age, it's like, oh, I can't do that. They'll say those horrible, nasty, I can't word sentences.
I've thought about it, and I put a class together, and that's as far as it got, because then I started volunteering at the YMCA, and I got deeply involved in my church and all kind of stuff. But I do have that. Now, I'll tell you what I do need. I need someone to push me, because I'm not one to talk about me and my accomplishments. That's not in me.
Well, that's why I was so fortunate and so blessed that I wanted to, and we talked for a long time, and I wanted to say, people need to hear this, because I believe in our testimonials, and our testimonials shares and helps, and it grows a community of global community, local community, and just the hearts and minds of people who have heard those silent no's are now can hear that positive yes from you, from me.
Yes, they can.
And that's really what I want to do.
Can. And the older people who retired and have some time to just not do anything, when you retire, you don't need to sit, because if you sit within 3 years, you're being planted in the ground or whatever. But when you retire, learning something new is a plus. And learning to write would be a plus. And I'd be glad to instruct classes on it, but I just need someone to do all that part for me.
Well, we will have to set that up. So, your last parting words, what do you want to let us know?
It's never too late to follow your dream.
Mm-hmm.
If God has given you a gift and you've been reluctant to step out on faith, take a deep breath and step out there. We all make mistakes in what we do. When I first started writing, I couldn't write a paragraph that made sense. Look at me now. You can do the same thing. Don't be afraid of failure. Do not be afraid of failure. Everyone fails at one time or another. The difference is the winners pick themselves up and keep it going. A failure will just stop and give up. You can't give up. You've got one life. Do the best you can with this life that God has granted you. That's the best advice I can give.
Amen. Miss Geraldine McCall, thank you so much. And I just want to thank you for coming on Bridges Live. And you can catch Bridges Live every Monday, and the podcast comes on iHeart and iTunes Radio. And you can always click on the link and share the link, because it's in the sharing. It's listening to our testimonials. It's listening to Miss Geraldine McCall talking about her passion, her purpose, and not just saying what she did, but she's talking about what you can do. And I think that's what I want Bridges Live to do, is to get you to an understanding so you can get yourself into an action. First, there's information. Second, there's understanding. And after you understand something, you too can put yourself into an action. And without action, we become stagnant. And like Miss Geraldine McCall says, if you don't become action, you will die. You're dying slowly. And I think you're living. I know you're living. Life is in your voice, Miss Geraldine. And I just pray that God has granted us you and all the things you are doing and will continue to do. So what's the next book you're working on?
I'm re-releasing Conflict of Emotions, but then I've got a couple of children books I'm playing with.
Okay.
One is called Picking Beans, from when I was a child, and another one is called The Piano. My mom made us take piano lessons as children.
Well,
Pompano is a farm town. Was a farm town when I was growing up. So I am a bean picker.
Well, we look forward to those. We look forward to those books, and we're gonna keep abreast of them. We're gonna have you back on Bridges Live. I'd like to thank everyone listening to Bridges Live. This is Dr. Paul, and I love you, and God bless.